After 3 years and no real improvement in remote literacy and attendance rates, the Northern Territory Government is changing its controversial bilingual education policy. The policy mandates that classes in remote Aboriginal schools be predominantly taught in English for the first 4 hours of each day. The new draft policy out for consultation doesn't remove that, but it does make more of the importance of traditional language. I spoke with Education Minister Chris Burns earlier today about why the government has made the change. Chris Burns, for educators and communities who might have not seen the detail of your draft policy change, can you explain what the difference is?
Well, we're going out to consultation on our draft policy. Certainly this policy is a clarification of the existing policy and further development based on research by the Menzies School of Health Research, which essentially points to the fact that we need to be exposing kids to standard English earlier, i.e. in early childhood rather than later.
What's the clarification regarding English in the first 4 hours of the day?
Well, the original policy, I think, was clear in relation to the fact that the focus was to be on English, the focus was to be on making those kids and supporting them to be literate and numerate in English. Unfortunately, I think there was a bit of mischief made around that. People were told that they couldn't speak their own languages in those first 4 hours, which was untrue. So really this is clarifying the fact that we value those languages as an important scaffold platform to really support kids to become literate and numerate in English.
The current policy states that the first 4 hours of each day should be taught predominantly in English. And one of the reasons at the time was so that poor literacy rates would improve. It's 3 years on. Has there been an improvement?
Well, there's been incremental improvements right across the board with our NAPLAN results in the Territory.
Specifically in Indigenous communities though?
Well, overall there have been increases. I think one of the difficulties we do have in Indigenous communities is lack of attendance. So first and foremost, even before a policy about English as an additional language, I think we've got to get those kids to school. So that's part of it. These changes are going to see longer term benefits. I don't think you see them overnight.
So under the proposed draft policy, are remote schools still required to teach in English for the first 4 hours of each school day?
Well, the aim is to get those kids literate and numerate in English. That's our primary aim. That's what we're on about.
So is that first 4 hours in English still in the current draft?
Well, the idea is for those kids to be taught to be literate and numerate in English. The use of language and culture is a scaffold, a very important scaffold for that policy end. So that's the policy intent. It always has been the policy intent of government.
Looking at both the current policy and the draft that you'll consult on, it's very clear that a lot more is made of the importance of home language, traditional languages within the schooling system. Do you think that that should have always been included?
Some people in remote communities were told that they couldn't use their language within the classroom. Now, I've been out on those communities, I've been asked by those teachers, by parents, by educators, and I've said quite a number of times, no, of course you have to use those languages. And I felt very strongly, along with my colleagues in the caucus, that we needed to clarify and further develop this policy.
The Menzies research on this, which you've said this week, informed your decision, clearly says that the effectiveness of the approach depends on local language speakers and the availability of resources and suitably trained staff. What are you going to do to ensure that those resources are made available to schools?
Well, our schools are very well resourced, both physically and in terms of staff. I think what we've done as government is put the policies in place in terms of literacy and numeracy, families as first teachers. We need to move along this path. We've certainly got the funding in place to achieve our policy objectives.
What can you do to improve attendance rates?
Well, we've certainly got incentives for kids to come to school. We've got frequent attenders programs. We've certainly got the Clontarf Academy for boys and similar for girls. We're rolling out those further throughout the Territory. But also, I think we've got to have some sanctions in there as well. And that's why a couple of months ago in Parliament there was amendments to the Education Act around infringement notices for parents who continue to refuse to send their kids to school.
Chris Burns, thanks for joining us on 7:30 NT.
Thanks, Claire.